This is a video that's going to explain the Challenge 12B, the computer guessing game. And it's a computer guessing game where the user is going to write down a number between 1 and 1,000 on a piece of paper. And then the computer is going to use a process called binary searching. And a binary search is basically where you guess halfway between an upper and lower region. So if I say guess a number between 1 and 1,000, your first guess is going to be 500. All right, if you say higher, I'm then going to guess between 500 and 1,000. If you say lower, I'm going to guess from 100 to 500. All right, and you keep going through that process, and actually you can guess the number relatively quickly, all right, within, say, 10 guesses. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to have the computer do that for us. And it's a little more complicated program than maybe we could do just without any help online. Normally we'd be meeting in the classroom, and you'd be able to follow along. I'd give you maybe some samples. So this time I'm going to give you a structure of the program. I'm not going to tell you or show you the exact code to make it work, but I'll give you a lot of hints along the way. So let's take a look at my sample program that I have right now, and it has a lot of comments in it. Okay, here's the guessing game right here, and I have it set up. I am using the scanner. All right, so you can see in my main I have a scanner set up. I have an input variable, and that input variable basically is going to be higher, lower, okay, or yes. All right, so this is the input. You're asking the user, did I guess the number, or is it higher, or is it lower? All right, and then again is just a variable that I use so that if you want to play the game again, or if you want to try another number, and you say again, so it would be yes or no. If they say yes, or if they simply type the letter Y, all right, it will go again. If they type anything else, it will just exit and say goodbye. Okay, and then here's the variables we're going to need. We're going to need a low and a high, all right, and the low number is going to start out at 1, and the high number is going to start out at 1,000, and the guess is always going to be halfway between high and low, and that's the number that's going to change over and over again. You'll keep guessing, and if you do it right, it should work out so that the computer will guess it, say, within 10 guesses or so. All right, and then of course guesses is simply a variable, and I'm not sure I put that in there a bunch, but I wanted guesses to be a variable that will keep track of how many times it took the computer to guess the output. Okay. All right, so here's the loop, and remember we're in a while loop, so this is a loop inside a loop. All right, I have an outer loop that basically is again. Do you want to play again? And notice that at the very beginning I did say again equals Y, and I did that so that it would run at least once. Now some of you might think, well, you could have done a do while loop, and yes, I could, but I try to avoid the do while loop. I'm just going to do everything in a while loop. Mainly because in the AP class, the do while loop is not part of the AP subset. So in this case, you can see I set it to yes so that it will run. And the first thing it's going to do, it's going to reset the variables. Now, notice you might have thought, well, why didn't you initialize them up here? Because I have to think in terms of, will they want to do this again? And every time they want to do it again, I need to reset the variables back to the original settings. So I declared them outside the loop, but I reset them inside the loop. And so I set the low to 1 and the high to 1,000. And if you add the high and the low together and divide by 2, you'll get the middle between the two. Now it is an integer, so don't worry about halves or anything like that. It will always kind of truncate it and round down. So 1,000 plus 1 is 1,001, but if I divide that by 2 and do integer math, I get 500. All right, and I set the number of guesses back to 1 because I'm going to increment the number of guesses every time the computer doesn't guess correctly. All right, now once that's done, I'm going to start asking the user, and notice I put while true. I didn't put a condition in there. I simply said it's true. All right, and I'm purposely causing an endless loop here because what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a break statement in. And the break statement is going to cause this endless loop to end at some point. At some point, the person is going to say, yes, that's my number, in which case it's going to break. All right, now there's another thing in here. I'm going to do some error checking, and I'll show you where I'll use that break statement again. But basically, it's going to keep going and going until the computer guesses the person's number. All right? Okay, so here's the part where I am going to ask them an if statement. Now notice I'm not giving you all the code, but I am giving you this code because I wanted to show you how to get just the first letter of a user response and to make sure that the user response is a lowercase y, because you can't count on a user entering in yes correctly. All right, they might type with a capital Y, in which case it wouldn't work. So this way I want to force it to be a lowercase one. So if yes, I'm going to display how many guesses it took, and then I'm going to break the loop. So this is obviously right here, you're going to have an if statement, and inside the if statement you're going to say, is your number this guess? All right, and then I'm going to get that number, and if the number, okay, and what I do is basically say if their input, remember they typed yes or something like that, if the first letter, the substring 0 to 1, that means the first letter in lowercase equals a y. Okay, now we haven't seen this a lot where I've got this dot, you know, and multiple methods all in one line. But I'm saying take the substring, the first letter, make it lowercase, and check to see if it equals y. And if it does, break. Now, you'll have to somehow get this guesses in there. I didn't include that, but I wanted to show you how to get the user response for yes. Now, if they don't say yes, all right, then basically that means they said no. All right, so the next thing I have to check to see is I have to ask the user, well, if it's not yes, then was it higher or lower? Ask them that. If they say higher, or well, I'm sorry, I put the error check here. This is optional. You don't have to do this, but if for some reason it wasn't right and low had somehow become greater than high, and you'll see how it gets there in just a second. But if for some reason that occurs, all right, that means that they answered wrong. Somewhere along the line they said high when it was low and low when it was high, and in which case the computer can't recover from that. So in this case, what it's doing is it's going through and it's saying, okay, we got a mistake, break, do you want to do it again? All right, this part is optional, don't worry about it. Now, if you get past the, you said no, okay, the number is not right, then you have to ask them, okay, is it higher? Okay, and if it is higher, then you're going to set the low value to whatever the guess was. So think of the numbers higher than 500. So I'm going to make the low value be 501. So now it's going to look between 501 and 1,000. Then recalculate the guess, and then let it go back around, and it will say, well, is the number 750? Okay, all right, and well, if it's no, all right, then check to see if, ask them, is it higher or lower? Okay, and then they do that. If they say lower, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to set the high value one less than the guess. So let's say, once again, the number is less than 500. Well, if it's less than 500, now the low is 1, and the high is going to be 499. Add the two together, it's going to guess 250. So you see how it keeps dividing it in half and half and half? You ever taken a piece of paper and fold it in half and fold it in half and fold it in half? How many times can you fold it in half? Well, really not much more than 6 or 7 times, because it gets so small. The same thing is true with this program, is that it's going to narrow down on their number relatively fast, all right? Probably within 10 guesses, the computer will guess their number between 1 and 1,000. All right, so if they keep going around and around, eventually they're going to say yes. If they say yes, then you're going to maybe give them some kind of response, say good job, you know, that kind of thing. And then it will come down and say, well, do you want to try again? And this is where you do, if they want to try again, if they say yes, all right, then I'm going to say if again equals again dot substring dot to lowercase. Now you might say, but you didn't say equals y, and there's no if statement. The reason I don't need the if statement is, remember, it's going to come back up here at the top, and it's going to say while true. Okay, excuse me, way up here at the top, it's going to say again dot equals y. All right, if you said yes, then it's going to reset the variables. If you said no, then it's going to go all the way to the bottom and say goodbye. So I've set this up so it actually will work temporarily. So let's go ahead and run this. And here it's saying, is your number between 500? And I'll say, oh, you're amazing. Yes, it is. Okay, so now do I want to try again? Yes. I'll go ahead and I'll try again. Now it's going to say if is your number 500. Okay, now I don't have the option for no. All right, so that's the part you have to write. All right, but I've done all the rest of it. If you say, is it 500? Yes, you did it again. Do you want to go again? No, and anything but yes. All right, then it says goodbye. Okay? All right, so that should be a big help in getting started. Once again, here's the top part. You can pause it if you need to. Here's all the variables that you'll need to have. Okay. Then we have the while loop. While you keep saying, yes, I want to do this over and over again, you reset those variables. Then you have your endless loop that will break out. And it will break out if you say yes. It'll also break out if you do this error checking. Okay, it's going to break out at that point. But otherwise, it's going to keep going around and around. Okay, and so your job is really to write this part. And if you follow the directions that are listed there, it pretty much tells you what needs to be done. Okay? Hopefully you can get it from there. We'll see you.